So in what may have seemed to be an effort to look transparent, the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, in accordance with the Obama administration, released 3 secret U.S. court opinions and other classified documents. In a new Tumblr page that went live yesterday dubbed "I See on the Record," it's clear that over the years, the NSA has intercepted thousands of emails from Americans who don't have a connection to terrorism. The released documents shine a harsh light on how the NSA has operated, painting a picture of an agency that began collecting over 50,000 emails of innocent Americans in 2008, but didn't change their collection efforts and how they were implemented until 2011. In fact, one release from 2011 shows that Judge John Bates, the FISA court chief judge at the time, said, quote, "The volume and nature of the information it has been collecting is fundamentally different from what the court had been led to believe." So after a major document dump, does this help or hurt the president as he tries to regain some credibility on this issue of the NSA? Let's bring in our gaggle, former Obama White House Hispanic Media Director Luis Miranda, roll call reporter Shira Tuplitz, and Americans for Tax Reform's Mattie Duppler. Welcome to all of you. Luis, I want to start with you. Former administration official, you know, and I know you've been working on some of these NSA, trying to get some more disclosure, more sunshine on this. The administration every time there's a new disclosure, it feels like, boy, they're correcting the record yet again, and it looks like they hadn't been coming clean with us before. Well,
it's death by 1,000 cuts, and that's why this release is important, but it's important that they go ahead and get whatever else they need to get out as quickly as possible.
You think there's more?
Well, there's clearly got to be more. I mean, you know...
You don't set up a Tumblr page not to, like, just use it once, is what you're saying?
Exactly. So I think that the right approach is to go ahead and get everything out into the open that they can, and that's why the External Review Board, and this is one of the things the organizations I'm working with are trying to do, is to ensure that there's an external review group that really is independent and transparent, because if you're just having a review by the same people who are carrying out this activity, you're not going to get the trust that you need to really restore with seriousness.
Right, and sure, it is... You know, I've talked to some folks sympathetic to the president on this who believe this too, who think that the NSA story, more than any other one, has really hurt the president's credibility, and that may explain more so than anything else why there's been a summer doldrum again.
Yeah, I think it has the most potential to be disastrous because it hurts them both on the left and the right. And you'll see, I understand why the White House is doing this now, because members of Congress come back in September and they will be all over the microphones on this very issue. And we'll say, in regards to the drip, drip, drip that we've seen, we're just waiting in our newsroom to see what they dump 5 p.m. the Friday before Labor Day.
It does feel like that there is more. So Mattie, I look at this and I think, okay, well, the FISA court showed some independence a little bit, but at the same time, the judge, by saying what he said and criticizing the NSA, admitted that he'd let something go, and the NSA essentially lied to him.
Yeah, they did the right thing 3 years after it was happening. You know, and look at what we're finding out. 75% of email traffic is getting swept up in this surveillance, and you know, the report says that it's not malicious, it was just a mistake.
And it's probably not.
But you know what? That's the answer. Everyone says, well, what could go wrong? This is all for the sake of national security. This is what could go wrong. The fact that all of your emails now are going to be under the purview of the government surveillance apparatus.
None of this happens without Edward Snowden, Luis.
That's right.
I mean, let's be realistic. Do we really believe that Clapper would have released what he did today? The NSA would be somehow deciding they need to be forthcoming? You know, the president tried to say that that's not true, that they would have done this review. Maybe they would have done some of this, but there's no way we'd be seeing all of this.
Sure, I'm not ready to defend Snowden just yet. I think at least Chelsea Manning had the courage to, you know, face justice and do the right thing in that regard. But I think that the bigger issue here is that, you know, you have not just the government having access to this, but tens of thousands of private contractors, right? So 75% of Americans, you know, or every American has 75% of their email traffic now in the hands of contractors who may end up letting that fall into the wrong hands.
See, that's the issue here, Shira. The government can say all they want. Nobody intended for this to be malicious. The problem is it takes just one rogue guy to decide to be malicious with it.
And when you think about that, it's kind of amazing it didn't happen sooner, because you do have all of these government contractors.
No, but this guy's leaking. He was leaking for a way to say, hey, let's bring some attention to it. But say, you know, somebody could have been more malicious with this stuff.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question.
And Mattie, do you think that there is going to be do you expect this continue to be sort of this left-right coalition on Congress that basically ties the administration's hands?
You know, I hope
they can
so.
tie the NSA?
No, you know, I hope that both the left and the right understand that this is a huge threat to the democratic process, and they continue to hold the president's feet to the fire on this issue.
There's no party in this. This is about getting.
Doesn't seem to be. There is sort of. It's
No.
basically it's a classic. It's establishment versus the populace.
Yeah.
And it's one of those classic cases there. All right, you guys are going to be coming back. Up next, a deep dive into the power of PACs. And later, author and New York Times ethicist Chuck Klosterman. He'll be here, so don't miss that. But before we go to break, another cut from the Nixon tapes, the extended play versions. Here's then RNC Chairman George Herbert Walker Bush calling the president about his speech right after Watergate, about Watergate.
The thing that burns me up is the feeling that you had and that came through. They don't deserve a little credit for that, but I think the people and the folks may understand it. They understand it. The folks didn't understand the Checker speech, but people did. I mean, the commentators didn't. And the commentators didn't understand Cambodia, but the people did. And the commentators didn't understand May 8th, but the people did. Well, the hell with the commentators.
President Obama is on his way to upstate New York right now, where he'll be pushing his proposal to lower college costs. Let's bring back our gaggle, Luis Miranda, Shira Tuplitz, Mattie Duppler. Luis, again, I'll start with you. This is your administration. He's pushed this issue of college costs and the high cost of this, and he's not asking Congress for money. He's trying to shine a spotlight on it. But it seems that you know, he is right to point out this problem. But the problem is, quote unquote, us in society. We keep rewarding the expensive institutions, don't we?
It's true, and it's a terrible situation because what you have is college just getting more and more expensive, even as we see that more and more jobs that are being created in this economy are going to require a college education. You can't get by just on a high school degree anymore. And so that's why this is so important. But what's important here, too, is that this is a good effort at trying to get bipartisanship. You have a lot of Republican governors and Republican members of Congress who support the type of innovation and competition. This is where he has a good effort on.
And Mattie, though, but this is weird. You know, Freakonomics, we've just had all these, you know, different pop culture books, but Freakonomics, one of the most popular one, notes that, you know, why is it that when you know, colleges have gotten away with this issue, they keep raising their price, and the higher their price, the more applications they get.
Well, you know, and listen,
so it screws up the market.
Yeah, but listen to what, excuse me, what President Obama is going to be saying. He's going to be talking about making lending easier for students, and college and universities see that as free money, and so do students. This is going to, of course, flush the system. And I would agree with what Lewis said about how you can't get by in a high school education anymore. Between the discussion on student loans and immigration, we're missing the middle class, tradesmen, that kind of thing. We're focusing too much on college.
This issue of free money, I mean, I'm sorry, like the universities need to take some accountability at how high the cost is.
Absolutely, and I actually see this as a pretty political move on the president's part. You know, what isn't, because obviously he was very popular with this crowd during both of his re-election campaigns.
It's some of this crowd that's not happy with him about NSA.